everyone. I'm Angela Kirkian, your Director of Education here at PPA. And today on In It Together, we're going to be talking with Monica Sigmon. Hey, Monica, thanks so much for joining us on our call today.
Hey, Angela.
I am excited to chat with you and just want to start off. I'm just curious, how are things in the Sigmon household, Sigmon Taylor household?
In the Sigmon Taylor household, probably much like they are in most of everybody's households that are watching this. Ups and downs, good days, bad. Well, let me rephrase: good hours, bad hours, right? Just changes so quickly.
Yeah.
And just trying to balance that, making the best use of this extra time and also not caving into that productivity pressure and feeling like we're kind of being good to ourselves too. So trying to balance that.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I were chatting the other day just about kind of how to handle all of this craziness. And, one of the things that I think continually comes up in our conversations is just giving ourselves a little bit of grace and not being overwhelmed. I know you've made a couple of Facebook posts on that, but would you just give your thoughts on how you're being gentle to yourself as we're going through
Well,
this?
it's probably advice I need to hear today, because today I haven't been so gentle on myself. So it's always easier to fix somebody else's problems. Than your own.
That is true.
But I do think, I know, let's see, this is week 6, I think. So I think the first 2 weeks I kind of came out of the gate going strong, and like everybody just kind of was like, oh, I've got this list of things to do. There's always plenty to keep us busy. And then by the end of week 2, I had underestimated how emotional each day was and how taxing that was, and just the worry about money. And we have somebody who works with us that we love dearly, and just really worrying about how to keep him on and keep him paid and that kind of thing. And so, so week 3 and 4, I just kind of retreated a little bit. And it was about that same time too that I noticed on social media that it was just like this inundation, right, of like webinars and education offerings and people posting like all these amazing things they're doing. And for me, instead of motivating me, that just kind of made me retreat a little bit more. And I call it the over glorification of productivity, because I just felt like I can't write the next great American novel this week. I can't do it. So I just kind of retreated a little bit and had to realize that that's okay. That's kind of what I needed to do to process all of this. I mean, this is big stuff. None of us have gone through anything like this in our lifetime. And so, so I think that if we keep pushing and pushing and going and watching all these people around us doing the same and feeling that push, then I think we can kind of miss the big picture, miss the opportunity to really digest what is it that's happening? Why is this happening? What are we supposed to learn? What do I want to do differently in my life when this is over? And I would hate to see people just push past that. So not to say we shouldn't be productive, because there is a lot of great opportunities that we can be maximizing right now. But I'm really, really trying to go easier on myself and just say, today it's a beautiful day. I want to take a walk or read a book or take a nap or whatever. And realize that we don't have to be pushing every minute of the day, because guess what? When we come back and things get started again, it's going to be crazy, and we don't want to start that exhausted.
Right. Yeah, because it's already going to be a little emotionally exhausting just getting through this, initially.
Totally.
One of the reasons I really wanted to chat with you, and one of the things I think you're going to be really good at sharing with everyone is perspective, really, because you and Michael, you guys have gone through lots. You've been in business for a long time. And so you've seen a lot of ups and downs in the economy, recessions and all of that stuff. And you've pivoted and you've changed and you've, grown and evolved. And so I really want to talk about the mindset that takes to do that, because I think that's something that people can really we'll say work on, but just be
Hmm.
conscientious of as they're going through all of this, while they're being gentle with themselves. Our minds are always going, we're always thinking. And so, what, if you had to give someone some advice on taking all this in and how to handle it in your business and what changes or what mindset you would have to take the next step to get to the next place, what would that be?
So, um, I think interestingly, I think the best advice that we have, that Michael and I would have to share, is because we did it so poorly, because we reacted so poorly the last time. We've been through, the change to digital was huge. That was a huge, impact to our industry. Um, then the recession, then I had some health issues, which caused us to really almost lose the business about 4 years ago. So we have been through a couple things, and we've recovered from some really well, and then we've recovered from some despite the mistakes that we made. So I think it's better to kind of focus on that, because I think the knee-jerk reaction is to come out of this, and we all make our worst decisions when we're short on cash.
Good
That
point.
is every bad decision that I have made in 20 years. I look back and I go, yeah, what was I thinking? Oh yeah, I was broke. So I think that's really, really important, because what you don't want to do now is come out of the gate and just, you're so panicked and you're so in need of short-term cash flow that you're doing things to the detriment of the brand that you have already built or that you're trying to build. Because while it doesn't seem like a big deal, if you're a luxury studio and you do a couple mini sessions, it does take time to recover from a decision like that. The client doesn't understand that switch in mentality. And so if at all possible, my advice is to really keep thinking about that long game, and really keep thinking about, if I try and ask ourselves, if we weren't in this cash situation, is this a decision is this something we would say yes to? And if the answer is no, and it doesn't, fall in the guidelines of our brand, then we're really, really not going to do that. And I know it may be, oh, well, that's easy for her to say, or, whatever. And we all do have to take our own financial situations into account. And there's certainly things that we do that we don't love, if we need to, but we do pull everything through the filter of the brand. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is, it kind of goes along with that, is just that bigger perspective, the big picture. Like, I really thought the recession was the worst thing that we could have ever dealt with. And then I really thought that, where we were 4 years ago was the worst thing that we had ever dealt with. And really, practically speaking, this is probably the worst thing that we've ever dealt with. But I'm not as panicked as I was with those other events, because I know that at some point this has to end. Will we be worse for the wear? Probably. Are we going to make the numbers we thought we were going to make this year? Probably not. Um, but but it will be okay. We will come out on the other side of this. We will look back like we currently look back at some of those events and just say, wow, we did it. And we made changes after each of those events that were some of the smartest changes we have ever made. And we'll never do business again like we did, prior to those things happening that made us change. And so I think this will be the same way. There are things that, get away from us. There are expenses or habits or whatever that we kind of take for granted or whatever. And, now's the perfect time to really analyze all that. And I remember during the recession, it was like, do we need 4 phone lines? Can we get away with 2? Let's renegotiate the insurance. Let's,
Yeah.
trimming everywhere we could. And now we'll never go back to how we were. I mean, that was like,
Yeah.
I look at the money we threw out the window back then, and I'm like, oh my God. So I think that there's invaluable things that will change the way we do business going forward. So I guess I'm starting to ramble and I apologize, but I
No,
guess
that's okay.
I would just say to people, really try and keep your mind on the long game. Like,
Mhm.
where do you want to end up? And what can you pull from this that will enable you to do your business differently? And really, we're all closed right now. And I was talking to some photographers a few weeks ago, and I was likening it to when a store closes for renovation. We've all seen that. They intentionally take time out, they close down, they shut down revenue, they repaint, there's new fixtures, there's new product, there's new attitude, the whole thing. When they open back up, we're all excited. And so we can liken this to that, and say, well, maybe our studios right now are closed for renovation. And we've all also been to stores that have stayed open while they've tried to renovate, and it's a disaster, right? It's confusing. Someone's going to, slip and fall. It's like, what are they selling here? And so I feel like we always, as photographers, we're like, let's try this. We're going to do this. But we're doing that while the business is open. So we're
Right.
only ever gonna, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
limited.
Yeah.
So this is a good opportunity to really think about some of those things.
So I have a question. I know we talked a little bit earlier, and I love your perspective, and I think that all is such fantastic advice. And I know people are talking about, being true to your brand, and we're big on that, in all of the education, that when we talk about branding and branding is how your customers feel about you, right? It's not about the
Mm-hmm.
colors you use and your logo and all of that. So
Right.
everything you do is your brand. Here's
Mm-hmm.
my question though. In this time when everybody's going through this, like anything else, we're kind of dealing with issues on a solitary, when you got sick, you dealt with that, you were
Right.
dealing with that, the world wasn't dealing
Right.
with that. In
Right.
a situation where, the world is all, we're all in this together. Um, do you think that customers are a little more lenient in understanding that you as a small business owner need to do things a little differently to sustain right now?
Yeah, I do think, I think to some extent, depending on where your clients are in the marketplace. So I think that, the majority of studios serving the majority of the population, middle class, upper middle class, even, I think you've got some grace there. We're all watching restaurants that are doing takeout with a limited menu or what have you. So we're
Mhm.
all going to give those guys grace, and we all want to support local. I think the higher end clientele you have and the more luxury your brand is, I think the less leniency you have, for a
Okay.
couple of reasons. I think that clientele is not as impacted by this. If we want to get really
Right.
honest, they're
Right.
either, the ones with the wealth are either, they're still working, they're
Right.
working from home,
Yeah.
they're executives, they're that kind of thing, or they're retired with wealth and they've been through these, not a global pandemic,
Right.
but they've been
Right.
through market, upheavals. And so um, they're secure enough that these things don't rattle them quite as much. So
Yeah.
that level of wealth it has a little bit of a different mindset, and they're not going to be as affected by these things. So they're not going into the Mercedes dealership now and expecting that Mercedes is going to say, well, we really can't come and get your vehicle for service now, we're cutting back. You're going to have to bring in your vehicle yourself. That's not going to work. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think it really depends on the client, and it depends on how luxury your studio is. We really, really have been striving to be at the level of that luxury good service. So it would be hard for us to charge what we charge and start cutting corners and start
Yeah.
nickel diming. Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
saw a lot of that at the recession when gas taxes and delivery taxes and like all of those things started nickel diming. Vendors started nickel diming us. And I said at that point to Michael, I'm like, we can never do that to our client if we want to be that high-end brand. We've got to absorb it. We've got to suck it up. We've got to keep over servicing, but that we can't look like we're weak or that we need that help. They don't care. They care, but they want a reliable brand that they don't have to worry about. They
Right.
don't want that emotional
Yeah. And they have more
homework.
time than money typically. And so they're happy to spend money. They're happy actually to spend their money to get the
Yeah.
service that they want to receive, which I think
Yes.
is really
Yes. More
important
money than
to
time.
remember.
I think you meant more money
More
than time. I think you
more
meant.
did I say that? Yes. Did I
Yeah.
say that backwards? More money than time. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm
And they still want that service and they're happy to pay for it. And they are not nearly as impacted as, the majority of Americans right now.
So tell me a little bit about the changes that you guys made through some of those challenges that you were talking about earlier that you're kind of most proud of. I know we talked a little bit about the budgeting side, which is always good
Mm-hmm.
to get a handle on your expenses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But did you guys do some changes in your like to your offerings and kind of who your ideal client is?
Yeah, for sure. And that was really difficult. So, but we really kind of doubled down and said, we really, for us, we want to be at that top level of client and business because really, they Dave Bachrach said this in the late 1800s, like you're going to make money up here with the affluent, the carriage trade, or with the masses in high volume. And so it's very, very difficult to make a great living with that middle market, but not doing volume, like not having
Mm-hmm.
enough business, so
Right.
um so I think that for us, we were in that middle lane. We were like aspiring to be over here, but we weren't committing to it. We didn't have enough
Right.
commitment and conviction to it. And so for us, we really just said, okay, what do we want to do? Like when we got in this business in the first place, I remember when I started 20 years ago, I knew what business I wanted. I knew the client I wanted. And because of economic things and the recession or whatever else, I had kind of lost my way. And then in Michael too, we kind of just were saying yes to a lot of things that we shouldn't have said yes to. And we got exhausted and burned out. And, that's when I got hurt. And so, so it was that, and we had to hit rock bottom before that happened. And it was that mind shift of, okay, this isn't what we want. We want this client and we want this business, and anything that's not on that road to that, like we're not getting off on those exits anymore. Like we can't do it. So
Yeah.
it's hard because you're shifting from short-term cash management, short-term numbers to a long game. And that's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's the most valuable thing that any of us can do.
Yeah, that I just think that fear right now of jumping back in, right? So how do we go from this dead stop essentially? And not everybody's at a dead stop. I certainly don't mean that. But
We are.
getting going again. But you
Yeah.
have a clientele, so I think there's a difference. Our members really range in people who are
Mm-hmm.
quite literally just getting started, just building their
Mm-hmm.
businesses, to
Mm-hmm.
those like you who've been in business for a long time, have made changes, have evolved. And so, trying to help all of those people kind of understand how they can, individually come out of this. There's not a one size fits all answer for sure. Um, but just, building relationship with clients, which we know is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys doing right now just to build and keep relationship going with the people who have supported you?
So that's a great question. And I do think you're right. And for the people that are just starting out, I wouldn't panic because there's plenty of time. Like really, like this isn't going to be over overnight. We're going to come back
Yeah.
into the studios and it's going to still take a while for the phone to ring, and that's okay. Don't panic if you unlock the door and the business doesn't just, trample over you. That's okay. That's going to be normal. But so we're just doing things like lots of social media. I will say those couple of weeks that I was retreating a little bit, I stepped back from that.
Yeah.
I definitely could have done a better job of staying in touch with folks, but I just wasn't like mentally in that space.
Sure.
So So social media, stories, like right now, Liam is in the studio painting us a new background, building us some props, you know, so those behind the scenes things will appear in our stories this week to just show people we're still at it. I think that a great thing to do that I have not done yet, is just pick up the phone, start calling people that were on the books that we've had to reschedule. You know, here, every town is different, but here we've just been going up and down and up and down, and we're opening and no, we're not, and we're going to stay closed till June 10th. And so there's just there's like a lot to digest. So we've just kind of left everybody alone for a minute, but we'll reach out probably next week and just start calling people and saying, how's it going?
Yeah.
How are you feeling? The other thing we've done that's been super fun is we've Zoomed with a lot of our clients' kids.
Oh, fun.
And like, I don't know who's more grateful, like the child or the mom, for like a 15-minute break. But like, I had one who was like, wait, and she had to go put her gymnastics outfit on to show me her routine. And I had another one who had to go put her dance outfit on. She had to show me her dance thing. So
Oh,
that's really, really fun. And clients super appreciated that. We dropped off a couple of care packages to some of our great clients that have been with us over the years, and surprised them, you know, in a cloud of Lysol as we dropped it off on their door. So we've done that. And, you know, email newsletters, you know, once a week is a really good idea to just kind of tell people what they're up to. But I think the best thing to do is put yourself in a position of offering value to them. What problems can you solve? I mean, I've seen photographers with great ideas. I've seen photographers doing story hours, you know, reading to the kids so mom can
oh,
get a break and go get a shower. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
really, really beautiful things. So what is it that your clients need that you can be a source for and a solution for? Because the more problems that somebody solves, the more indispensable they become. Right? So we want to be more than just a photographer. Like, how can we be boosting up their children right now? How can we be doing something nice for mom right now? How can, you know, what are those things that we can be doing
Yeah.
to help?
And it doesn't have to be
To
photography related. It's just life. It's just life related,
It's
you know?
life. Yeah. Tomorrow I'm doing an interview with one of my clients. He's 12. He's amazing. And so I said, why don't we do a Facebook Live? Like, he really loves art, like theater and that kind, you know. And so I said, why don't we do a Facebook Live, like where you interview me and we'll kind of do like a little like shtick back and forth. And he's like pumped. I mean, for a week, he's been like working on this, you know, he's like
I
scripting it
love
out.
it.
So that'll be tomorrow. But so just like, how can you just befriend your clients, you know, just
Yeah,
be good humans.
absolutely. As we start to kind of wrap up here, you know, again, going back to the idea that no, this particular thing hasn't happened, but we have faced recessions and life events that kind of push us down. What's your best advice for kind of getting back up and taking control of things?
Well, that's a loaded question because I feel like sometimes I can do that well, and a lot of times I can't. But
That's fair. Yeah.
one thing I know about me is that um, I'm better when I'm moving. You know, I'm better, like a body in motion stays in motion, a body at rest
Yeah.
stays at rest. And I'm one of those personalities that is black or white. There's not a lot of, you know, I'm going 100 miles an hour or I'm in the bed with the covers for days. So, so I have to be really careful that I don't start to go that, you know, down that road and circle the drain. And so, so I think it doesn't have to be these big monumental lists. If it's one thing a day, or if it's step one of a larger project a day, just try and keep one step in motion. Just keep moving forward. It is not a race. This is not going to
Mhm.
be, I'm afraid that people are going to think the doors are open and like, we've got to just pounce on our clients and get that money right away and get them booked with us right away. And I think that's going to like ooze of desperation and not feel sincere. So just take a breath, proceed with caution, be intentional. I mean, that word is one of my
I love
favorite
that word
words.
too. Yeah.
And that was my word for 2018 and 2019 was intention. So every business decision, every art decision was very, very intentional. And then oddly, because I wasn't going to do it 3 years in a row. So this year, my word is conviction. And that's a really hard
Interesting.
word for me
Yeah.
because it's like, you've got to, are you sure of what you're doing? And do you believe in that or whatever? So it's being tested right now, but, but
This is all your fault.
yeah, exactly. I'm so sorry. But
She
conviction
just
is the
had to pick
piece.
conviction.
I know, right? We are going to put that girl to the test because it is all about me. The entire world is about me. So that's how I've made that happen. But really, like, what is your belief? Like, what are you here on this planet to do? Like, really, what are you supposed to be doing? How are you supposed to be
Yeah.
helping other people and being a good human? And just slowly, one step at a time, even if it's just one thing a day, just keep moving forward.
I love that. Thank you. All of this was really just such great advice and so encouraging to the people watching. So I appreciate you. I value your friendship
Anytime.
and thank you
Oh,
so
I
much
love
for
you
your
so
time.
much. Oh, I love you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you so much for
Thanks.
joining us. And we really appreciate you. We'll talk soon again, I'm
Oh,
sure.
sounds great. Thanks, Angela.
Thanks, Monica.